Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Apartment Nerd Leasing Show. My name is Mark Julien, and this is episode 2. Today, we're going to be covering principles of leasing. I think these are kind of the keys that I'll be exploring, I guess, as the podcast evolves, and tying these back to kind of these top-level principles as we discuss different items that maybe you all share or ask that you'd like to be discussed, or things that pop up at JC Hart. I mean, the key really with this podcast is that I'm looking to share what we're talking about at JC Hart, things that we're focusing on at JC Hart, and share that with basically our peers in the industry. I think there's a huge opportunity for us to continue to grow in the sales and leasing environment, that space, and do a better job in helping customers. That's really the idea, is how can we help prospects and customers that are searching for an apartment, help them make a decision and understand the process. And so that's really the goal and the mission of this podcast. And I appreciate everybody who tuned in to episode 1 and left some great comments. I will be exploring some of your comments and suggestions upcoming. Also, thank you, Brent Williams, for pointing out that the recording could be a little bit better. I'm using a microphone this time, so hopefully it'll come across a little bit cleaner. So let's get into it a little bit. I want to keep these pretty brief. I don't want you all to feel like you have to listen to an hour or 2 hour long rant that I'm putting on. I think hopefully we can keep these around 5 minutes or less, and that's kind of the goal, unless we end up having some guests, and we may see some extended recordings from that point. But continue to evolve on the Anchor platform, by the way, and we'll soon be broadcasting to iTunes as well as Google Play, and I will update you when that happens. So getting into the principles of leasing as we're defining them here at JC Hart. This is, again, kind of top level areas that we're going to focus on in this podcast, and these are areas that we focus on and we train at JC Hart as well. So number 1 principle is the greeting. This particular space, this particular area is about bonding and rapport, understanding people's behavior, understanding different personality types, and being able to tailor and cater your conversations and questioning to individuals based off the greeting. There's a lot that goes into this, little bits and details, but we'll dive into that into next sessions. And number 2 principle, establishing ground rules. We also call this the upfront contract. It is so critical for us to explain to prospects how the process works. It's one of the reasons they email us or they call us. It's because they just don't know what to do next. We'll talk a ton about that space. Principle number 3 is intentional questioning and technique. We so often rely on our great people skills to sell and think that by just bonding and building rapport that we can actually sell. But part of what we really need to be doing is, so that we can eliminate mutual mystification, and we'll get into that as well, is ask the right questions of people. Topic number 4, principle number 4 is money. Too often we get in our own heads about money and assume that the prospects coming in the door think about money the same way we do. How can we get ourselves out of the way so that asking questions and helping people determine what their budget is, or talking to people about money, is not a hindrance in the sales process? Part number 5, decision making. Too often this goes back to the mutual mystification. We think we know how people are making a decision, but guess what? We're not really sure because we aren't positive about how that all works. And guess what they end up doing at the end? They end up saying, hey, I'm going to think about it. Well, how can we overcome that part of the process in sales? And lastly, testing the strength of the decision. Customers say, hey, yeah, I'm going to fill out an application, and then you never hear back from them. We need to figure out if they are certain and sure, and how we can ensure that they are actually going to commit. So those are the 6 principles. We'll dive into those a little bit more in upcoming podcasts. And if you have any particular areas of these principles you'd like for me to focus on or dive a little bit deeper in, please leave comments. Please hop on my blog, visit my Facebook page, hit me up on Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever social media channel you prefer. You can follow me on any of them. I'm kind of trying to work on Instagram as well. So feel free to communicate with me there. Ask me your questions on any of those channels, and I'll work those into the podcast. I'm not exactly sure what the frequency of the podcast is going to be because we're just kind of kickstarting this a little bit. But I think as we build some momentum, as I continue to talk to my team in areas they want to improve, those are going to be conversations that we'll be having here, or topics that we'll be covering here on the Leasing Show. Thank you again so much for listening. Please feel free to comment and share, and talk to you soon.